Today, we are diving into one of the most fascinating and deeply personal works in all of philosophy, the Pensées, which just means thoughts, by the 17th century genius Blaise Pascal. Now, this isn't your typical polished philosophy book. It's actually a collection of fragments, brilliant little notes he was scribbling down for a massive project he never got to finish. And in them, he wrestles with the biggest questions you can imagine: life, faith, and what it really means to be human. So, here's our game plan. We're going to follow Pascal's train of thought, starting with what he calls the human contradiction. Then we'll look at our endless need for a diversion, check out the limits of reason, and finally land on his most famous idea, the reasons of the heart. All right, let's get right to the heart of it. Pascal kicks everything off with this one central problem, his core observation about us. He says that to be human is to be a walking, talking paradox, totally caught between two extremes. He just puts this question right in front of us. And I mean, think about it for a second. Are we these magnificent, brilliant creatures who can understand the cosmos? Or are we just insignificant specks, cosmic garbage? Pascal's answer is what's so wild. He says we're both. And that's the whole problem. And you can see this tension laid out so clearly here. On the one hand, yeah, we're the judge of all things. We can do science, create art. We're a repository of truth. But then, on the other hand, we're just a feeble earthworm. We're fragile, we're going to die. And honestly, we're a sink of doubt and error, totally lost and confused half the time. This right here, this is the core conflict of being human. I mean, you can just feel his amazement in these words, right? He's not just stating some dry fact. He is completely in awe of this tangled up reality. He calls us a monster, a chaos, a contradiction. For Pascal, any philosophy that doesn't stare this paradox right in the face is just, well, it's not telling the truth about us. Okay, so if we're this walking, talking contradiction, why aren't we just freaking out about it every single second of the day? Why isn't this existential anxiety just crushing us? Well, Pascal has an answer that sounds like it could have been written yesterday. He says we've all become absolute masters of distraction, or what he called diversion. And look, this isn't just about binge-watching a show or scrolling through your phone, though, yeah, those are perfect modern examples. For Pascal, a diversion is literally anything we do to keep from being alone with ourselves and our thoughts. And what's crazy is how timeless his examples are. He talks about people spending their lives chasing a ball, or kings going hunting. Others gamble away their money, or scholars bury themselves in their studies, trying to solve some problem nobody cares about. They risk their lives in war just so they can brag about it later. The critical thing to see here is that the activity itself doesn't really matter. The goal is the chase. The goal is to be so absorbed that you don't have a quiet moment to think about the big, scary stuff. Man, this quote just hits so hard. We're always living in the future, right? Planning the next trip, the next career move, the next thing we're going to buy. Or we get stuck in the past, reliving old memories. We do absolutely everything we can to avoid the present moment. Why? Because in the quiet of the now, that uncomfortable truth about our condition, it might just start creeping in. Okay, so let's recap. We're a paradox. We use distractions to avoid facing that paradox. Now, what's the first thing a smart person does when they have a problem? They try to think their way out of it. But Pascal basically puts up a huge warning sign and says, hold on, that's a trap. See, for Pascal, there are basically three different ways we know stuff, and we get into deep trouble when we mix them up. You've got the body, which knows through the senses, hot, cold, that kind of thing. Then you have the mind, and that's your logic, your math, your proofs. But then there's this third order, the heart. And that's all about intuition and first principles. I mean, really think about this for a second. How do you prove that time is real, or that space has three dimensions? You don't. You can't use a formula to prove it. You just get it. You grasp it. Pascal says these foundational truths come from the heart, and reason actually depends on them to even get started. Reason can't prove the ground it's standing on. And this is so, so important. Pascal is not anti-reason, not at all. The guy was a brilliant mathematician and scientist. He's against the tyranny of reason. He's saying, look, it's a huge mistake to just toss reason out the window, for sure. But it's just as big of a mistake to believe that reason can explain everything. It's a powerful tool, but it has its limits. All right, so if pure logic can't save us from our existential dread, then what can? And this is where we get to Pascal's most famous and maybe most misunderstood idea of all.
Okay, we have to be super clear here. When Pascal says the heart, he is not just talking about fuzzy emotions or some sentimental feeling. For him, the heart is a genuine instrument of knowledge. It's a faculty of perception that can grasp truths directly, in a flash, without needing a long step-by-step proof.
And you can really see the difference between the two here. Reason is slow and methodical, right? It builds an argument brick by brick. The heart, on the other hand, is immediate. It just sees. Reason demands proof for every little step, while the heart perceives those foundational, self-evident truths that all proof has to be built on in the first place.
And there it is, one of the most famous lines in all of philosophy. This isn't him dismissing reason. It's a statement about its jurisdiction. He's saying there is a whole other category of reality, a whole world of truth that deals with love, beauty, meaning, and God that logical reason just can't get to on its own. And this is where it all leads for Pascal. Faith isn't about ignoring your brain. It's about recognizing that the deepest truth of our existence, the answer to that huge contradiction of our greatness and our wretchedness, is not going to be the final answer to a logic puzzle. It's a perception. It's a form of seeing that happens in the heart.
All right, let's bring this all home. Pascal's work doesn't just wrap up neatly. It leaves us with an enduring challenge, one that feels more relevant now than ever before.
So, look at the journey we've just taken. We started with Pascal's diagnosis: we are a living paradox. He showed us how we hide from this truth through endless diversion and distraction. He demonstrated why pure reason alone can't fix this for us. And then he pointed toward a completely different way of knowing: the heart. In the end, the Pensées don't just hand us a simple answer. They leave us with a question. And it's a question that just screams at us today, in a world with a billion more distractions than Pascal could have ever dreamed of. With our phones, our endless entertainment, our constant busyness, have we become so good at diversion that we've just forgotten how to listen to those other deeper reasons, the reasons of the heart? That's the question Pascal leaves ringing in our ears.